Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed for being with us this morning. Welcome. My name is Roger Casali. I am our host and moderator for today. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the second of the Economic Forum's London conferences on the future of Ukraine. And we held this conference for the first time here at Six Park Place last year, and this is the second year. You'll be pleased to know there are no housekeeping points for me to tell you, so you can relax. We are going to have a coffee break at 10:30, and the coffee bar will close then at 10:45, so you can come and take your seats again, please, 10:45. We'll reopen 10 minutes later, in case you want to grab a coffee during proceedings, because we've got a lot to get through. And so it's my pleasure, my honor, to welcome you on behalf of Sigmund Berdikowski, who some of you will know if you've been to the Economic Forum conference in Karpax in the Carpathian Mountains. It used to be in Krynica, now it's in Karpax. You will have met Sigmund, who was the founder of the Economic Forum over 30 years ago. And over the last year or so, we've been organizing these outreach conferences. We also have one in Brussels, and this is the second one, as I said, in London. And Sigmund can't be here today, but he's asked me to pass on his warmest regards. Thank you for coming, and to invite you to Karpax next year for the 33rd annual conference. It's got the nickname the Polish Davos, and this summer, 6,000 people attended the conference, and it's very well thought of and very influential, and you'll have a great time. We showed some scenes earlier on the video. And after each Karpax Forum, a report is published, and it's called the report from the Warsaw School of Economics and the Economic Forum. This is this year's report, which Sigmund has asked me to show you. And we have a couple of copies at the back if you'd like a hard copy, but we can also send you it electronically. And there are also some brochures about the Economic Forum here. But we're not here today to talk about the Economic Forum. We say thank you to the Economic Forum for organizing this event. We're here to have a conversation with our a wonderful group of panelists and speakers. We've got a lot of panelists, a lot of speakers, and with you, our audience. And I will not be moderating from the stage. I will be moderating from the front row here. And please feel that I am here just as much for you, our dear guests and our audience, as I am for our dear speakers and our panelists. And I hope that we can, although there's a large number of us, we're expecting 90 people overall, I think it's about 40, 50 already here. We are keen to have a conversation which we hope will be continued next year in Karpax or in Mikołajki, which is near the Masurian Lakes, where the local government conference of the Economic Forum takes place every year. And that will be in March this year, in the first week of March, and the Karpax conference the first week of September. Now, I promised Sigmund that and Marek and Maria, who I will introduce in a moment, that I will keep talking until our third panelist arrives, whose name is Bob Seeley, who is a Conservative MP, and he is the co-chair, in fact, of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Ukraine. And we met with the All-Party Parliamentary Group from Ukraine yesterday in the House of Commons and had a very good meeting with them. And Alex Sobel, his Labour co-chair, will also be joining us again later on and joined us for dinner last night. So we have a very good relationship with the All-Party Parliamentary Group. And Bob has said he's on the train, he's got stuck, but he will be here for sure no later than 9:30. So I think I'm expecting him to walk in any moment. Let me just briefly explain why is the Economic Forum having a conference in London and about Ukraine. Well, there's a long-standing commitment that the Economic has had forums have with Ukraine. there used to be a Polish-Ukraine conference a few years ago, and certainly the local government conference will have as guests and panelists many local government leaders from municipalities in Ukraine. So the Economic Forum has very close relationships with Ukraine. And obviously we're keen, despite the terrible events we're witnessing in the Middle East, to remember our friends in Ukraine and remember the importance of supporting Ukraine. And I often feel that what we do is very, very modest in terms of what needs to be done. But I know how much it means to you that we do what we can. We do the best we can. So we are doing the best we can in the Economic Forum to keep a focus on Ukraine. And to remember also that this is not just a fight for the future, the survival of Ukraine, but it's also about our future, the future of Europe. And I think that is a second reason why we are holding this conference. And the third reason, and that's why we've called the conference The Future of Ukraine, is because even in this hour of crisis, this very dark hour, we feel that the new Ukraine is being born and will emerge from the experience and the resilience of the Ukrainian people. Just as the new social contract emerged after the Second World War was forged in those darkest hours, so perhaps we will see today a little bit of signs of what the new Ukraine is going to look for when that hour comes. But now it's the moment for me to introduce our panel. I could start telling you about my summer holidays and other things until Bob arrives, but I'm not going to do that. If any of you would like to do that, we could also pass the time that way. But unfortunately, fortunately, we do have a very, very crowded panel. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the seat warm for Bob until he arrives. So I'm going to come and sit down now over here. And I'm going to introduce our first two panelists. And on my right, on your left, we have Maria Ionova, MP, who's come here from Ukraine. I think we should give her a round of applause just for that, actually. Thank you. And just to save us time, I'm going to tell you that she is the member of the European Solidarity Party on the Foreign Policy Committee, former chair of the European Integration Committee. You are a board member of the International Women's Democratic Union and former leader of the European Women's Congress, in fact, co-founder of the European Women's Congress in Ukraine. So we're absolutely delighted to have you with us and looking forward to what you're going to say. And on my left, we've got Marek Subiec, who's a great friend of the Economic Forum from Poland, and who is former chief of staff, I think, to President Alexander Kaczynski. Also, you ran the National Security Office. You were a vice president of the European Parliament. I'm not quite sure what you haven't done, actually. I'm very glad that you're here today. Now, the way that we've done this is that I'm going to ask the panelists 3 questions, and I will show you those 3 questions here, just so that we have them in mind. And they're going to answer those very quickly, I hope. And then I'm going to open it up to the floor. And so the first question, and please jump straight into this, and perhaps I can put this to you, Maria. What steps need to be taken by Ukraine and NATO before we might see Ukraine as a member of NATO? Remember, you're one step closer to that after the Vilnius summit, but you're still one step away. Tell us a little bit, please, about that. But it's a big question, but quite briefly, and then we'll have time for the other questions. And most importantly, we'll have time for questions from the audience. Welcome.
Thank you so much. And dear friends, I know that you are true friends, not only of Ukraine, but also of democracy, because we are all realizing that this war is more wider than between Russia and Ukraine. And thank you for my presentation. And probably before full-scale invasion, we could be more shy, modest, skromny. But this time, of course, we don't have time for any diplomacy, and we lost such colors as gray, so it's black or white. And in this regard, I allow to say that I'm visiting frontline starting from 2014, and I see all the developments on frontline, also what is going on in Ukraine, and how why also the full-scale invasion has been started. To answer your questions, because it always gives us such a power to speak on such conferences, because we feel that we are not alone. To tell you the truth, in 2014 we felt alone when Russia annexed Crimea and attacked Donbass. But we were together with our people during Revolution of Dignity, and after that, how many volunteers also went to the front line. Should I?
Please carry on. Yeah.
Okay. So that is why our society has been changed. We are more in favor of Euro integration and for membership for NATO. So such transformation means that we are already not a Soviet society. We know what we want, and we are fighting for this. And I think that we have changed in other societies, and also in other countries who value human life, who value territorial integrity, who value international law. And of course, number one for us, it's Ukrainian soldiers. And if we are talking about NATO, yes, it's our task number one, and we would like our friends to be with us this way. We know our homework, what we have to do inside our country to reform. It's about rule of law, it's about anti-corruption, it's about democracy, freedom of speech, and all other things. But we would like also that our partners and friends stay with us, not as soon as we will fight, but also to the victory, and together with the victory, and to be part of the victory, because it's also investment on your security, of your people, of your societies, on the future, because Putin was absolutely clear that he would like to restore the borders of 1997. So that is why we really have to be very serious what he said, what he says, and to be prepared. And believe me, our unity is a great, also not only inside our country, but also international unity. It's also one of the weapons against Putin, because he didn't expect that the world will unite around Ukraine and will help us, because really assistance and support has been increased a lot. But also internal unity, but I also really think that we all together have to work to get an invitation on Washington summit. We have already passed Budapest Memorandum, Bucharest summit, so I think that political leaders and parliaments and governments realize that lessons has to be learned, and not to give Putin any chance to go further, because he will go. And we saw it after 2008, even in Jordan. We allowed him. That was a green line, because there was no adequate reaction on his actions. That is why if we would like to restore international order and to stop, we have to stop Putin, and we have to show that we can not only to defend democracy, we also are capable to fight for democracy. And in this regard, membership, Ukraine's membership in NATO to succeed, and Ukraine's membership in EU. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So, thank you very much for that. Marek, I mean, you were saying to me last night that even a few years ago, the idea that Ukraine might soon be a member of NATO seemed to you extraordinary, perhaps impossible. Perhaps you could make a comment on that. And if I could ask you also to go straight on to the second question, which is about whether the conflict in the Middle East is distracting us from focus on Ukraine. And in the meantime, I'm glad to say Bob has arrived, so I'll just give him a moment to catch his breath, and then we get to the third question. I'll swap seats with Bob and he can come up here and we'll bring him in on that. So briefly please on NATO, straight on to the second question and then we'll bring Bob in.
Thank you for this opportunity and I think from coming here, having Ukrainian member of parliament, this hard time, it's a big honor and really I appreciate the presence here. Even the trip here is not easy. It's 2 days. So I'll try to be brief. Whatever we say about the NATO membership of Ukraine, we should remind what was the NATO in the beginning. In the beginning, it was a defensive organization created for peacetime. Because there was no war. During the whole time of the NATO, there was no real war. If Afghanistan came, we tried to build a new mission for NATO, having peace, general peace. So NATO tried to find a new excuse of the existence. Now we have a war time, but still it is not a NATO war. It is the war this foreign superpower Russia, where NATO, as members of NATO try to support Ukraine. NATO as an organization is not in this conflict. So still this organization is operating in the peacetime. And I must say something what is not very popular, but we have to reschedule the organization of NATO for wartime, sooner or later, as long as we want to have an efficient way of real war, not only for potential war, where we have operational plans, we know which division would move where and who would protect the Białystok and who would protect Romania now, but it is not the case. So from this point of view, I don't see soon future of Ukraine in NATO, because NATO is not ready and the war is not resolved. We will speak the whole day about the war, but then there would be questions from any subject is around the war. So I must say, this what I said is not pessimistic, it is realistic. If the membership of NATO is not possible, what is possible? I think a lot of things are possible. First is possible military and political integration of Ukraine with Western allies. And this is not only about the combatant duties, this is about pure politics and this is about the reforms. When Poland was applying to be a NATO member, we speak more about democracy than about army. We speak more about the rules of minorities than about combat units ready to invade Denmark, which we had as a Warsaw Pact member. So I think this is what has a magic substance, membership action plan, which is something like a nice diploma given to the member state, and if you fulfill all the requirements, then you become a member. Ukraine will not get this membership action plan in Washington summit, unfortunately. I had a hope that Americans are waiting for nice ceremony in Washington like they did with Poland and Czech and Hungarian some years ago. But probably this will not happen. So what it means that Ukraine should unilaterally declare this is something like unilateral membership action plan, and to declare timing and requirement which they want to fulfill as a country. Sooner or later it will be a ready job done before official invitation, because sooner or later Ukraine will be formally in NATO. They are fighting now, but the procedure inside NATO do not give us any chance to complete it. Thank you. It's not very polite, you know, it's worship me, and I very stressed.
keep a careful eye on all our panelists, and especially on our audience, who I know are keen to ask a question. Fantastic, thank you. That would be a quote at the conference, I think, when Poland was applying to join NATO. We spoke more about democracy than we did about the army. One word answer, yes or no, is the Middle East crisis distracting Poland and other NATO allies from Ukraine? Just really very brief, because I'm going to be involved.
Well, we are losing, we as allies, Ukraine as a main party, we are losing the attention of the world, of the international audience. Sorry, but this is like a show. If you are watching the Middle East, half an hour at your news, you are not watching the Ukrainian news. And that's why we are losing attention. And we are losing attention in the United States, we are losing election in Europe. So I think the Middle East crisis is much more sensitive for American audience than Ukraine now. Because reasons you know better probably than me. So I think the timing is very bad because of the Middle East for the Ukrainian war.
Bob, welcome. I've already introduced you. I think I did you proud, I hope so, but I haven't got time to do it again. Please come forward. Welcome. Delighted to have you with us. Thank you for hosting us yesterday in the House of Commons. That was great. We're going to swap places. I'm going to go down there. Thank you. Welcome. Hi, thank you. Of course, Maria and Marek you met yesterday. And we're on to our second question, which is the Middle East crisis distracting from Ukraine? And then the third country goes straight on to the third question, which is relates to Russia. Why Russia would like a comprehensive testimony, and how is the longer term sort of strategic? Because I don't know about Russia, who spent time there with backgrounds in militaries and journalists who trying to see what's there about that. We are short of time, and I want to bring a couple of questions in from the audience as well. So question 2 and then question 3, and then I'll open it up to the audience. Yeah, you just press that button to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello, I do apologise for being a few minutes late. To answer I'm going to be concise. I shall, I know I always make myself more popular than I am. To the second question, yes, it's obviously a distraction, because the media is turning away from Israel-Gaza conflict, and this conflict is likely to last, well, the aftermath of it is likely to last months rather than weeks, and even the war may last months rather than weeks. So there is going to be a long tail to whatever happens, and whatever happens is not over yet. As for the third question regarding the treaties, I'm guessing here because my gut feeling is that Russia can show a diplomatic hostility in the West without really making a particular difference. And it is irrelevant whether it is breaking the various treaties it signed post-Soviet Union, simply because so much of its equipment now is in eastern Ukraine. If you read some of the small print and the more obscure articles, you'll know that they are bringing in all their air defense from the Far East, that they've stripped out. So they say that NATO is the threat. The irony is Russia's borders have never been more unguarded against either China or Russia, or NATO, because so much of their kit is now in East Ukraine. So they've established themselves for a war footing, and I think treaties in general are pretty irrelevant right now.
Thank you very much indeed. And now it's time for our audience. We have 15 minutes before the next panel, 10-15 minutes. I'm going to take questions, I think, in groups of 3 if I can. And so thank you. Please ask a question and keep it very short, and then we'll be able to get everybody in. And do remember to tell us who you are. James Arbuthnot.
James Arbuthnot.
Thank you, James.
Conservative here in the House of Lords. I want to say 2 things. First, thank you to Ukraine for fighting our battles for us, because it is really, really appreciated here. Second, membership of NATO. What does Ukrainian membership of NATO look like? The whole of NATO? The whole of Ukraine? Or just those bits that remain under current Ukrainian control? Because to consolidate the Russian gains by only taking part of Ukraine into NATO seems to me to contain its own dangers.
Thank you. Please.
Yes, thank you very much. Ewan Grant, I'm a former law enforcement intelligence analyst who's worked extensively on EU programs in Ukraine, including just before and after the Maidan. I'm now a broadcaster covered the war. I saw how Ukraine was betrayed by a lot of incompetence in Brussels. My question is, how worried should we be about German support to Ukraine and all that follows from German support or lack of it?
Thank you very much. Mary Dejewski, pass you the mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mary Dejewski, journalist. Could you maybe comment on what difference, if any, the recent elections in Poland have made?
In what?
Great. So 3 questions. What does NATO membership look like? Should we worry about Germany and the impact of the elections in Poland? Bob, can I ask you to sort of moderate the answers? So you decide who answers which question. And I think maybe Maria wants to go first, but that's your job, not mine.
Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple of one-word answers. Mary, very nice to see you again. You should be happy not me, but to see you. And Lord Arbuthnot, thank you very much indeed for being here and you as ever. I'm cynical about Ukrainian membership for both NATO and the European Union, and I think it's going to be a lot more difficult to get into both. I think for NATO, what you're going to have is effectively a virtual membership where NATO and the leading powers in NATO, so Germany, the United Kingdom, France, and the United States, effectively re-establish a modern Ukrainian army with significant Western supplies, some grants on board for, but that will not be NATO membership because the NATO powers, and especially the United States, would not want to risk war with Russia under Article 5, and it's only when Russia is re-established has a semi-functioning relationship with the West that you are going to have NATO in Ukraine. Otherwise, there will be a membership that it isn't a membership. In the European Union, I'm very cynical about the European Union, I'm afraid, and I think that the French will make sure that the Ukrainians are not members of the European Union for at least 15 years, if not 20. But that's just my gut feeling, and I'm afraid when I see Ukrainians talk about Europe, I just think they have no understanding of the horrendous bureaucracy in Brussels and indeed the entrenched Western European focus of the French, the Belgians, but also a little bit the Germans. Right? You're going to disagree with me.
Thank you.
You want this one?
Thank you. Yeah, I will probably start with the question on Middle East because what happens in the Middle East doesn't mean that the war of Ukraine is over. And really, together with Israel, we face the same enemy because this enemy would like to crumble democracy. And Putin receiving Hamas in Moscow, so it's absolutely a message to the world on which side Russia is. And sometimes, yes, some leaders, they do not want to see the real truth and the reality, and even more when Russia itself has its own terrorist group for many years, Wagner Group, also not only in Middle East but from Africa to the Middle East. So this group also used as a cover-up by the Kremlin, and we also have to be honest that the threat which Russia poses to Europe, so it's also as they were prior to October 7th, and just about NATO and the regional, so it's not a regional challenge, and that is why also we know that there will be more than 70 elections next year, so I'm not even mentioning USA, but Putin also would like to destroy our international unity. So also he's weaponizing time, we realize it. And we, believe me, we as Ukrainians, for us time, it's about human lives. And when we are talking about EU or NATO, I think that NATO It's our task number one. We have passed all these etaps, all the stages, from Budapest memorandum to non-block status, and it didn't help us to be in peaceful relations. On NATO, I think anyway, we all together have to work to get an invitation at least, that the democratic world has to show Putin that this is a democratic territory, and we will fight for it.
But it is doing that by supporting Ukraine. How realistic, really, is Ukrainian membership of NATO and the European Union, moving beyond the exhortations, we must do this and we must support Ukraine? How realistic is actually
Okay, now we are getting weapon to fight, but we are not getting enough weaponry to win. And I think
that's different from membership.
It's different, but when we will succeed on the battlefield, more political leaders will realize that they need Ukraine in alliance. And we also understand that the key role of membership of Ukraine, it's not only EU countries, of course first it's USA and then it's Germany and then other countries. But here, when all the politicians, I think that it's still not enough decisive decisions. Everyone is thinking that, okay, we will get through elections to elections, it's not our responsibility. So it's about personal responsibility. Really, it's about personal responsibility. We remember Obama in 2014.
What happened?
We remember, we really appreciate all the support what we have got. But when all political leaders will realize that this is their war, then they will realize that they need Ukraine to be in alliance in NATO.
Right, but they will say to you, it's not our war, it's your war. We are supporting you because it is in our interest to do so.
Biden has already announced that this is their war also. He announced that. It's another messaging. It was transforming. But when we are talking about membership, it's about political decisions. All the statutes, all the documents, we see that it's possible to change. But altogether we have to work to advocate that Ukraine has to get an invitation. When membership, of course we realize that it will be after when the martial law will be over in Ukraine. But again, it's all about political decisive decisions. So we shouldn't be afraid of Russia, really. And I think that we are all thinking what will be when Russia will be defeated. Please think about yourself and Ukrainians. And then Soviet Union also was destroyed. So what happened? Nothing. You're afraid of nuclear weapon? I'm sorry, he will use it anyway if he wants. So we all this blackmailing we get through almost for 2 years. But where we are, we're still fighting. And believe me, when we hear that Ukrainians, are you ready for negotiations? No, we will fight. I'm sorry, it's our society which will fight, because then we will not exist. Then we lost our statehood.
Mary, thank you so much indeed. Mary, Polish elections and also anything NATO and EU.
Yes, but before I go to the I must say there is one positive point discussing about the Middle East impact on Ukrainian war, that we have much more chances to have Israel with us because of this war. Israel has no more comfort to play between two sides.
Why is that important?
Because, as Hamas is supported by Russia, they have no space for any game. They have to do with us, Israel. And so I think sooner or later, military cooperation between Israel and Ukraine will be more efficient. Okay, that's only the part. Coming back to NATO membership. You asked the question about territory. Of course, it is a problem, but is anybody in this space can answer the question, what would be the real, efficiently managed territory of Ukraine after any ceasefire or peace or whatever? We do you have any good answer? Of course, if you ask President Zelensky, he said, we have to regain all the territory. I agree with you. But the question is it effective or true, or this is only a dream? This is an open question. So I think the territory, it is not the first problem. The first problem is what kind of country we are accepting for NATO for peacetime. For the wartime, I have no problem with Ukraine, but for peacetime, I have a lot of problems. This is my most friendly country in the world, Ukraine.
Why?
Why? Because of quality of democracy. I don't want to develop a partner, the country which has a court system like they have. I don't want to have corrupt people like us. I don't want to have a lot of
Okay, so how long will it take to get ready to get Ukraine ready? If what you say is accurate, how long would it take to get ready for EU membership?
I don't know when is the next prophet meeting in London, but nobody knows when. But of course, it is a process. They started, I think already started a lot of cities in an effective way, having the process. Then you can say that's moving. It is moving. It's sooner or later go to the final success. About Poland, which I had to answer because I voted for this change. My party is in the coalition who kicked out Kaczynski and his fellows from the government after 8 years. And it was the last moment to do it because in the next 4 years I think there will be next to Hungary in Warsaw, unfortunately. So I think that we can expect only positive messages from Warsaw after the new government will be created. And this can be extremely important in a sort of new mood around Ukraine. Because, as I said before, Europe and some allies are tired. There's European world fatigue about Ukraine. Warsaw is not tired at all. Because we are too close to be tired. And I think a lot of new energy will come from the new foreign minister, new defense minister, so we can push our allies to be more determined, more effective, and to support not only using 30 years old ammunition, that was the case so far. Everybody were happy to send all the old stuff which is sooner or later should be destroyed. Now we have to produce new ammunition to deliver that. And we have to pay new money here, but we pay for our security.
Sorry, Marek, I'm sorry, but I'm not agree with Marek because we understand about our institution capability, capacity, and so on. But sorry, Albania, it was also corrupt and all the things when this country joined NATO. I'm sorry. So it was a political, absolutely decision. That is why when we are talking about Ukraine, so we really have to provide with clear and efficient security guarantee following and based on the following principle that really NATO membership, it's an end game. And also after Vilnius summit, do we have got any conditionalities? Not yet. So it will be almost how many months? So, not to find excuses. No, we have to find all the world reasons why Ukraine should be in NATO. And when we will speak about economical benefits, I'm sorry, it will be economical benefits also for NATO countries. It's about production, it's about security. So that is why when we hear about corruption and all other things, it's not a priority.
I agree. And if you want to look at corruption, there's a lot of dodginess in Brussels that newspapers here regularly expose. So actually the idea that the European Union is this clean, perfect system is not true. However, there is a slight vibe in Ukraine that people say reform and you can come into these institutions. Ukraine says let us into these institutions and we'll reform. Do you understand that so much of that process has got to happen first? It's happening, but it is actually, that process has got to be so well underway anyway, because it is in your interest. And I'm one of those people who think that the levels of corruption is overstated, personally. And I think that what's that great saying about Ukraine? It's the most transparent, corrupt country in the world. So actually, you've done lots of good things on transparency, etc.
Maria, just before you answer, please allow me, just before you answer, and let you answer again. We're now running, it's a great conversation, but I've got a programme to defend on behalf of our audience and other speakers. And I know you're keen for us to get to our coffee break, so I'm not going to take any more questions to this panel, because we've got another panel to come. But I do just want to very briefly go back to Mary, James, and Ewan. Mary, what do you think? What was just very briefly, the answer to your own question. Is it making a difference? Is anything, just very, very briefly, please, just to come back to you.
Well, I think that it's almost the other way around, that it would have made a colossal difference had Donald Tusk and his Civic Coalition not won this election. I think, in a way, the status quo as it was, with very strong Polish support for Ukraine, means that is on course rather than being reversed. And it sent the opposite message, if you like, from the Slovak elections as well. It kept a much more a broader consensus, so far as I can see, in the European Union and in the EU generally. So it was less change, and it would have been more change had Kaczynski stayed in power.
James, have you got a clearer view of the future shape of NATO? The message seems to be it's a distant reality, but very briefly, please.
No, I'm afraid I haven't. I still don't know what NATO with Ukraine in it looks like. It has to look like a country where the United States soldiers will come and fight for a particular territory. And I don't know what that is.
Ewan, really, I would ask if you don't mind, one or two. Are you concerned about Germany? And we didn't really talk about Germany. Perhaps we'll come back to that. Perhaps we'll come back to that later. Yes, go ahead. Literally, very short, please.
Wirecard, and not just the German criminal case, the upcoming criminal case in Britain. Wirecard 2024, Germany, and more power to Mr. Seeley.
Okay, so we'll come back to that later. So we're going to hear later from Maria and Marek, who'll be on other panels. I don't know whether, I did promise I'd come back to you. Do you want to say something now, or can you wait until the next panel? Because we're really overrunning time now very badly. I know you wanted to come back on this, Maria. Could it wait until you're on the next panel? Or do you want to say it now?
No, I will next panel.
Next panel. Same with Marek. Bob, any parting word, or can we switch the panels? Let me give you the microphone. So.
Yeah, just to build up on that, I agree that there's no better understanding of the shape of NATO. It's just American soldiers are not going to be dying in Ukraine. That is an absolute reality. And because of that, there is going to be no technical Ukrainian membership soon, actual Ukrainian membership. What there is going to be everything short of that. And if I was Ukraine, I'd almost prefer that, because I think it is much easier to get that absolutely massive restructuring of the army and that flow of weaponry, which is not acceptable.
Later, you come back later. Right. Thank you very much, dear panelists. Let's give a round of applause. And